this litigation that is made up, and they get paid to do it. They get reimbursed handsomely to bring up litigation on that. And so,
when they sue, do they make money from this? And does that continue the process of?
They get reimbursement for high-cost attorney's fees, and a lot of times there's awards or damages involved that they get to skim as well on what they're suing for. It isn't just a matter of it being about the species. There's always money involved, and they make out well. And when they keep, they lose a lot of cases, but they don't have to pay for those cases. When there's no disincentive to bring a case that you might lose ultimately, then they keep doing it. And so if, this terminology, loser pays, and these frivolous lawsuits, because all they have to do is storm the wall, see if they stick, and boom, if it doesn't stick, oh well, they still get paid and they move on.
And Doug, in a scenario where you mentioned they were going to change the power poles and there was this endangered species and they didn't change them.
Supposedly endangered, yes. It was called milk vetch. We grow vetch all the time up north. It looks like the same plant.
Now all that ecosystem is destroyed in that area.
Yes.
Is there any discussions with these groups about what they're doing? Sometimes they're specifically focused on one silo thing, but the impact of that may be a bigger danger or disaster for the environment.
You try and argue logically about that, and sometimes we're successful. We've worked with groups. When I was a state legislator, we had some success on forest management in a very narrow way on that. We had a couple people that we could actually really get along with on that, but there's so many others that are coming in, a wildlife group or a center for biological this. They make up a name and they rent an office with a phone and a desk and a fax machine, and boom, they're the center for something that can come out and sue. And then they get credit as being a stakeholder. They make a little logo and they put all the little logos on the sheet, look at all these groups here that are against this project. And they make money at this. And so when you try and logically point out that if you don't manage the forest, you're going to burn 1 million acres like they did in my district on what was called the Dixie Fire a couple years ago, then is there a win in that? I was up on that fire, looking around and talking to firefighters and such. I was going down Highway 36 in Plumas County one evening there. They let me kind of go through a zone there that was, it was cut off to the public, but it was safe enough to go through. 3 cougars ran right out in front of my pickup in that area because they were being displaced by the fire. They were young, teenage cougars there. One of them actually bumped into the side of my pickup as I was going by. You don't see that normally. So what do you have going when you burn 1 million acres like that? What's it doing to that wildlife? What's it doing to all the other, the deer, the raccoons, all that such? And then what are you going to get out of your water supply when 1 million acres of now ash is going to start washing down into the brooks and streams and rivers and end up in a lake, whether it's Lake Almanor up there or Lake Oroville, it's all going to come into that. Lake Oroville is a water supply for almost 20 million people. And so isn't that great, for your Southern California folks watching here that the watershed up there is negatively affected because forest management doesn't happen so that we can put fires out much more readily, or maybe they won't start to begin with in these situations. Instead, that fire started just not that far above Oroville again and burned all the way up nearly to Mount Shasta on that Dixie Fire, well past, not quite Shasta, but well past Mount Lassen and those areas. And so 1 million acres, and that's all going to end up in the watershed. It's going to affect the water supply for a bunch of people because it's going to end up in those streams. There's no win on this. We need to cut some trees, and we need not to be afraid of the idea of cutting some trees, because the Sierra Club and those guys will say, they're going to clear cut everything from here to Oregon, no, that's not what happens. That's nonsense. It's carefully done. It's done on a basis, when it's a timber harvest, getting the type of lumber we need for people's wood supply or paper products or whatever. Yes, they do what's called an even-aged area. They might harvest a 30-acre area. They don't do miles and miles, and they'll leave a few trees behind on that. And then, on private lands, they plant it back, and boom, 20 years later, you can hardly tell a difference on that. But it's a constant cycle. I'm a farmer. We have an annual crop. For foresters, it's a 60-year crop, an 80-year crop, whatever the criteria is on type of trees they're planting and stuff. So it's not a scary thing. It actually is a helpful thing. If you don't want million-acre fires, or the one last year that happened in my district just out of Chico called the Park Fire, another 400,000 acres. When are people going to get tired of this? When are they going to get tired of the bad air quality? We have the Clean Air Act, we have the Clean Water Act that are massively being violated by bad forest management. They beat the heck out of some farmer if he accidentally does something in a ditch there that causes some dirt to get in the ditch or some fish to be inconvenienced. Boom, they're criminals. But isn't it criminal what's happening with the lack of management of our forest lands, especially the federal lands that they own so much of? They don't own it, the people own it, but they are supposed to be managing. Forest Service has 193 million acres under its purview. Are they treating anywhere near the amount of acres that's ever going to catch us back up on this? The answer is no.
Now, Doug, do you think this is going to change with the new administration in office? Do you think things will change fast?
I think President Trump and his team there, and his new folks, Doug Burgum and the Secretary of Interior, and the folks that they're placing, I'm really happy with what I'm hearing and what I think they're going to be doing, because the president, he understands this stuff at least at a level to say we want to get this stuff done. He can't know every detail in the world on all this stuff, and I want to work with him on California water more, and all these things, and so. But I expect really good things to at least try to happen. Now, the lawsuits are going to happen. The environmental groups are going to just line up as quickly as they can and try and stop everything. We saw, I didn't get to talk to the governor about this yesterday, but, the state legislature lining up $50 million just to fight Trump, mostly on illegal immigration. I mean, what is so hard to understand about illegal in the immigration? People coming across the border without permission. We always welcome immigrants, but what the news never talks about, we're a country of immigrants, we're a country of migrants. Migrant is actually a wrong word for this. It drives me crazy. It isn't migrants. Migrants are people that move about and that basically are in a place by permission. So that's it's a pseudonym that shouldn't be used. But that all said, why are they bending over so backwards to try and accommodate illegal immigration, illegal aliens coming into our state and our country? And that's their priority. At the same time, people are suffering in Southern California from the fire. The legislature's up there in Sacramento trying to put $50 million just to fight Trump on immigration. How come people aren't more angry about that, But I think there is a wave of people that have been looking at what the Democrats have been doing and prioritizing, and I think they're starting to have their fill. People expressing that on the Southern California fires. You're seeing celebrities, you're seeing longtime folks that have been aligned with the Democrat way of thinking. They're saying, we're sick of this. So I know it might be hard to embrace Republicans, but if you want to just talk about the things that we do and not worry about the party label, we can do a lot of positive things. And we get accused of, as Republicans, of not caring about the environment. Well, for crying out loud, what does that mean? I'm a farmer, as I mentioned. We've been farming the same land for 90 years. Now, if I'm not taking care of my land, then I'm going to, just on strictly dollars and, green eye shade aspects, I'll be ruining my asset. But I actually appreciate my land. I appreciate the things that are on that, and so do the generations before me and after me. And any other farmer would tell you the same thing. Any forester would tell you the same thing. They love the trees, but you also know that you have to remove a certain amount of trees and then you plant them back. Otherwise, you're going to actually harm your forest. You're going to harm the wildlife. You're going to harm the water quality. And when the fire goes up, you're harming the air quality. That million-acre Dixie Fire actually affected here in the East Coast when there was such a concentration of smoke. It went up in the jet stream plume, came across the country and settled down over Washington, Philadelphia, New York, and all that. There was actually health advisory days not to go outside because of the fire in my district affecting the East Coast. And when we had the fires in Canada last year, whatever it was, they were so, and that's nearby in Canada, just north of here. That came down and affected the area as well. So should a California fire be messing up the East Coast air quality? No, we need to be managing those lands. And so, I talked with the governor about that, and I'll talk to anybody that'll listen. I'm probably boring your viewers right now with so much of it, but it's just a deal where we're not getting it done, and it's harming just about everything you care about.
Now, Doug, is it tough for you to be in D.C.? You're representing California, and when we have these type of incidents, and also we're we are putting money aside to sue the federal government. How is it like for you to be there?
How am I supposed to sell that to my colleagues from the southern states or from the Midwest or anywhere in the country when this is what they see, you know? And that's what I mentioned to the governor, was that, you know, we have to be able to make a saleable situation to the rest of my colleagues, because it's everybody's federal tax dollars, all 50 states that are involved here. And if California is not acting responsibly, they're not going to be as likely to support legislation. I'm going to be in there trying to make the pitch for it. I want to get our folks help. But I also have to be able to believe myself we're doing the right thing. And so if the California Coastal Commission is going to come in and put all these requirements, are going to add cost and time and delay and all that for things that already existed. You know, there's talk of not allowing any of the building on the coast side, you know, on the ocean side of Highway 1 or Highway 101, you know, whichever one, you know, it is in a particular zone, Pacific Coast Highway. They might be talking about banning no building on the seaward side of it. Like, well, why? Just because you don't like it? You don't like it in the view shed? You know, you have these people that are deciding we just don't like certain things. Like, well, too bad. You know, people have rights with their property, or at least they used to. And there's horrific things being inflicted on property rights in California and in the West, you know, because of these pronouncements by environmental groups. How the environmental law has superseded just about every other right in the Constitution, and that's what it looks like these days.